and believes she's on a family vacation. But after landing, she senses something is wrong. Within a few hours, the Syrian border is crossed at night, and Sana suddenly finds herself plunged into the heart of a territory controlled by Daesh. Unwillingly and without understanding, she is torn from her old life and thrust into a perilous, unstable world where survival is a daily struggle. Sana was kidnapped by Daesh, and today she'll explain how she escaped. Bombings, fighting, isolation, extreme conditions. Sana discovers a reality that no one should have to face at her age. Today, she shares her story in her own words, her courage, what she endured, how she resisted, escaped, and is now rebuilding her life. I'm warning you, this episode is not for the faint of heart. Welcome to StoryCube.
All of a sudden, she decides to confine me even more than before she made me wear the veil. She puts the veil on herself, and then we arrive at a place, and I was shocked because I didn't recognize the Algerian flag. Then my uncle approaches and says, "You are in Syria." The man gestures to my father, "You give your daughter." We see people crawling from the fire, dead and scarred children on the ground, and parents crying over their bodies.
Hello everyone, welcome to StoryCube. Today we're welcoming Sana. So Sana, you'll see, she went through an absolutely traumatic story. Actually, her story is crazy. There are lots of twists and turns, and what she experienced is absolutely unbelievable. Today I thought it was really relevant to have her on StoryCube so she could tell us exactly what she went through in every detail. Sana, welcome to StoryCube. How are you doing?
Well, thank you. I'm okay. It's going to be fine. Everything will go well.
So for those who don't know, maybe you can explain to them why you're wearing glasses, and I think people are wondering about that now that we're starting the video.
Well, I decided to keep my anonymity for my own protection and for my children's protection.
We'll understand soon enough.
Yes, of course, of course.
But before we get into the heart of the matter, I thought it would be relevant to go back a bit to the context before all this started. What was your childhood like? How did you grow up? What were the beginnings of all this in the end?
How did I grow up? Very badly. I faced complicated situations, suffered severe abuse, and was taken out of school at a young age. I was veiled at 13 or 14 years old. So I'm the oldest of my siblings, and my mother had a particular problem with me, so she couldn't stand to see me. She couldn't stand my reflection. So I was kind of her enemy.
How many of you are there in this?
There were 5 of us originally, and then over there she had other children. So I grew up in the north of France, where in my family I was always given a lot of responsibility from a very young age, starting at 9 years old. I went through a lot of torture. I call it that because it really was torture coming from my mother. I was the one taking care of my little brothers and sisters and so on.
Your mother, did she even cut your hair at some point?
Oh, that's really the least of it. Yes, of course, at some point. Actually, I wanted to have lunch with my aunt during the day. My mother left us at my grandmother's, and my aunt, tired of me staying in, took me out. When my mother found out, it was a disaster. She took me home silently. The next day I went to school. I've always been a little girl with long curly hair. And one day, so in the morning, the day after that day, she grabbed me by the hair, and then she cut my hair but really short. Just any old way. And actually my first reaction was that I didn't realize right away what was happening. I screamed, I ran to the television because my reflection was in the television, and then I looked and saw that I didn't have any hair left at all. It's a scene that really marked me, and that's why I talk about it in my book, but there are other scenes too. Over time, I lived through 15 years of hell even before experiencing poverty in Syria. I also suffered here with bruises and hematomas everywhere, a deformed skull from the blows, and I would faint when she hit me. She would hit me until out of breath, then act innocent, asking, "What did I do to deserve a child like this?"
We'll come back to that later, but did you write a comic book?
Yes.
Incredible. So basically it traces your whole journey in illustrations, right? With dialogues and all the big moments you've experienced. Is that it?
Yes, I wanted to include the most significant moments in this comic. I let the readers imagine the rest of how I was able to live through this terrible life. I emphasized the toughest moments.
Damn, that's crazy. I checked it out. The illustrations are amazing. Honestly, don't hesitate to go check it out. We'll obviously put the link at the top of the description. It's published by what? Vibergraphics?
Viber, that's right, Vibergraphics.
Vibergraphics. Sure, it's amazing. You can get it at Fnac or elsewhere.
Fnac, at Fiori du Nord and bookstores.
Exceptional. So it actually traces your whole journey from the very first worst moments you experienced, right?
That's right.
Damn, the turning point for what you would experience later was around 15 years old, right?
So my mother took me out of school about a year and a half before. Even then, things started to get complicated. She decided to take us out of school because she didn't like the national education system anymore. That's what she told everyone.
Okay.
She took us out of school and all that.
The whole siblings then, huh? All 5 of you?
Oh yes, all of us. My little brothers were still very young, but me, my brother, and my little sister, we were all taken out of school at the same time, so my mother has always been crazy, that's how I describe it. But she always had something bad about her, and I think it must have comforted her in what she was doing. Suddenly, she decided to confine me even more and made me wear the veil. She wore it too, packed our suitcases, and set everything aside. We had to eat on the floor, nobody knew why, especially since my mother had fully furnished the house, so we didn't understand why all of a sudden we had to eat on the floor. We needed to pray on time but didn't know how, so she got us little books and told us, "You have to do this." She watched us constantly. That's it. Things were getting weird, but we didn't know why. Then, in late August or early September, she decided to take us to Algeria and got us Algerian passports. Everything seemed believable. And then one day she said, "Come on, we're going to visit family in Algeria and all that."
How old are you? You're 15.
I had just turned 15, yes. I had turned 15 not long before, so then we left and all that. And something important to know is that I was cut off from the world at a very, very young age. I never went on vacation, I only knew school and home, that's it. And I don't even know how to manage. Even today, I still have trouble with things like trains, airports and all that. Back then, it was even worse. So when we got to the airport, we just followed my mother really, and then we arrived at a place, and there I was shocked because I didn't recognize the Algerian flag. I began questioning what was happening and why we were here. I couldn't talk to my mother since she avoided conversations with me. I had my brother, who was closer to her, ask where we were going. She got upset and told us, "Be quiet and just follow me," without a sound. We followed her, but the trip kept getting worse as we drove for hours through the desert, and so on. We arrived at a house in the middle of nowhere and saw a caravan and some poorly dressed people. There was a Flintstone-style caravan and they told us to get out with gestures. I started crying, my siblings did too, it was chaos. She takes us to the caravan, throws a black veil at me and says, "Put this on." I do, and when we arrive we're told, "Go on, run," and pushed out. We run without knowing our destination. I'm carrying my little brother, both of us running and crying from adrenaline, until she tells us to stop and assures us it's okay. Then we sit down. A big car arrived with a bearded man wearing something on his head and carrying a weapon. That was the first thing that shocked me.
Yeah, he is...
Oh yes, seeing a weapon like that you think we're going to die, where are we? And so we were terrified. And then we get in the car and drive for a few minutes and we see my uncle. I thought, weren't they in Algeria? They were supposedly gone before us. And then we see him with a weapon too. At that moment I thought, oh my goodness, I'll admit, my mind was in chaos. I was just shocked and watching what was happening, just looking at everything, and I didn't understand anything at all. Then we arrive at my uncle's house and my whole family is there. Everyone is in a house like that. There's a courtyard and rooms on the sides. And then my uncle, my mom, everyone starts crying and everything. And then they tell us, so my brother and I are paralyzed. We're in a corner of the wall like this. Then my uncle approaches and says, "You're in Syria." I hadn't studied much, so I wondered what country this was. I didn't even know what country this was, so we just stayed while they celebrated. Then, half an hour after I arrived, heavy bombing started. I got sick for a week, I had a fever, I stopped eating. My only hope was my father, who had learned what happened, told the French authorities, and was coming to get me.
Okay, how do you know that?
Because I heard my mother talking with my uncle and it was chaos at home. "Oh yes, he coming to do this, don't worry, I'll take care of it." So he says that to my mother and I think, oh well, yes, that's good, we have hope to get out of this. Knowing that my mother had given our passports and our IDs over there to the members of the Islamic State, so we were screwed. And my father arrives and he does everything to take us. My uncle notifies the authorities there, warns them, they take him, they talk with him. At the end, it was either stay with us and see we're not bad, or if you leave, we'll imprison you and possibly execute you in a few months. No one comes here and leaves, it's impossible. You die with us. He stayed and died in December 2019.
What happened to him? Can we...
My father, what I'll say may sound harsh and shock some, but that's the reality. They were all in a house, so I hadn't seen my family in a long time. In the final moments, it was a small road, so we could hear and were aware of everyone dying. They were in a small house with my parents, siblings, aunt, and her children. Actually, there was a mortar attack, I think, from the Kurds or Bashar's regime. And at that moment, my father was hit by a piece of shrapnel and bled out because his leg was completely torn off, so he bled out. My little sisters also died there, with their brains blown out, and they agonized for, let's say, half a day. since their organs kept functioning. They died agonizing and naked in front of my brother. Later, we buried my 3-year-old little sister and my other sister, who was just over a year old, and we buried them right after that, immediately.
Do we know why? What was the bombing?
It was a mortar attack. Over there, it's normal. They shoot at anyone, anywhere, just randomly. It was truly the heart of the war.
So going back to the moment when you arrived there, do you at any point understand where you are? If so, when, how?
I gradually understood. By the time I arrived and heard the bombings, I knew we were in Syria from what they said and discussed. My brother and I, being very close, realized we were in a country at war. However, we still didn't know why we were there. I understood later on that women got married very young. Since I was married a month or two, I don't remember exactly, but very quickly after. Within days of arriving, I began receiving dozens of marriage proposals daily. I eventually stopped counting because it was overwhelming.
Is it letters or what is it?
Oh no, they come directly to the house. Oh yes, they knock like that every 2 minutes, really. I'm not exaggerating, it was all the time. They visited my uncle, known for his many sisters, hoping to meet them. But since my aunts were all married, only I was left. At that time, I had just turned 15. I was 15 and a half. They came to the door. They knocked. My uncle refused, and I thought to myself, he will never agree to marry me off anyway, that's obvious. And not long after that, my uncle came to my mother's house and talked with her, so I wasn't invited to their conversations. My little brother, being a boy, was outside and saw what happened. He'd come tell me what was going on. Uncle found a boy he knows from Belgium whom he thinks is nice for you. He'll introduce you to. Let me explain how the introduction will go. He arrived 3 days after that. He came. My uncle was there, my father, and so this man. I was 15 years old. My mother told me, put the veil on your head. We left. My uncle told me to look at the ground, not to raise my eyes, that I had to be modest and all that, so I didn't understand. I sat by my uncle, trembling and holding his hand. He told me I could lift 2 nails of my veil. I kept looking down, unable to see the man, and then I left. 2 days later, my uncle comes and starts saying, well, that's it, get ready. So I hear my mother crying in the kitchen and saying, no, I still need her to help with the housework. I won't manage if she's not here. I need her for the children. She manages the house, and my uncle says, that's how it is. Women must marry and marry young. She's going to, it's already decided. Everyone is just fighting for their own interests.
Yeah.
He told me to get dressed, so I did. My father followed us, and we took a taxi to the Islamic court. When we arrived, we went into a room. I remember being in a room with many women my age who looked very young. Then we were taken to another room where I saw a man with a turban, my father, my uncle, and my children's father. I was in the back and heard something, but I didn't understand Arabic then.
The father of your children is,
Yes, he's the father of my children.
But then he didn't, it's...
No.
That's right, okay.
Yes, I never say my husband, I never have, it's just not for me.
Okay, but at that moment, it's unknown, you don't know him?
Yes, no, but I didn't know him at all. I barely even saw him, I only saw him from behind, so I didn't know him. And then the man gestures to my father like this, as if to say, you're giving your daughter away. The other one says yes. It's really stupid. Then he asks, do you accept? And the other one says yes. And then they have to sign a paper like that. They say, go ahead. Everyone hugs each other like that. Okay, and then we leave. I'm holding on to my father. There's no way I'm going to follow him. And then we all get into a taxi. It was the first time I saw him beside me, and he spoke to me. Terrified, I pressed against the door, clutching my father's hand in the taxi. Afterwards, we went back to my mother's place, my mother was still crying, saying, how am I going to manage all alone in the house? Well, anyway, crazy family, and that's it. But actually, it's kind of funny. It's tragic, but then I managed to avoid, so for 2 weeks, a month, I don't remember not having to live with that man. And then my uncle, right up to the end, took me back to the apartment and said to me, it's time for you to go live with that man. I arrive, collapse, faint, and my grandmother reassures me, it's okay, don't worry, you're already married. Yeah, no. And then I leave, I was shaking, I told my father, I don't want to go. And I remember seeing my father cry that day. It was the first time I saw my father cry, and he was crying, but he didn't speak. My mother packs my suitcase, gets my things ready, gives me my bag, and says, see you next time. So I tell my brother, come with me, my brother comes with me, and then we go up to the apartment. My aunt lived on the floor above. He said he'd come after grabbing a light since there was no electricity. I ran to my aunt's, crying and terrified, not wanting to go. I went back downstairs around 2 a.m. and did everything possible to avoid seeing him, climbing like the Great Wall of China, as we say. And I pressed myself against the wall. I absolutely didn't want to. And he kept saying, I'm your husband, I'm your husband. He kept repeating this misery I don't know for how long. I managed to escape for a month. Every morning I would leave very early, I would come back very late at night, and it started to become a scandal. The place where I was, because women there don't go out, so I was escaping, people saw me leaving, and they started asking questions to the father of my children. They were saying, "What is this? You can't do that, women don't go out." My mother, on the other hand, added to it and said, "No one opens the door of her house to her," she tells her sisters. "No one opens the door of her house to her because she has to start consummating her marriage. That's how it is, period."
She has to consummate her marriage?
Yes, that's it.
How old were you at that time?
15 years old.
And how old was he?
19. So as a result, I'm confined at home, and after a month, I experienced my first forced rape where I'm paralyzed with fear. I remember saying something like, "Never mind, I'll just be like a doll and I'll act like a doll so that I don't accept." I didn't want to do anything. I said no, but he insisted, saying I had no choice and owed him obedience because he was my husband. That's it. And after a few months, about 4 or 5 months, I think, I got pregnant with my first daughter. And I didn't know right away. I found out after 3 months. I found out I was pregnant and all that. I was emotionless that day. Actually, I just thought, oh, okay, I'm pregnant, and I just told myself I absolutely have to get my child out of here. I just wondered how I was going to do it. I feared having a girl because of my own suffering as a woman. I kept thinking I must get my child out, but I didn't know how.
So that's what you told yourself?
Oh, yes, no, but I really didn't want her to suffer like that. My pregnancy went by, and actually, on the day I gave birth, I was operated on by 2 teenage girls.
Okay.
2 teenage girls gave me the epidural while chatting, and I had picked up some more Arabic. I could hear what they were saying, and they were like, "Oh yeah, I had coffee yesterday. That was during the epidural." I told myself, this is it. The last day I'll use my legs. I'm going to die. Then they give me the epidural, and I see a doctor come in. I don't know where she came from. It was a woman. And then she started doing her thing. And in like half an hour, I think it was all done. And then the young people were cleaning me up and so on. And then I saw my daughter for the first time.
So it was a girl after all?
It was a girl, and I was scared. But I was so happy to see my baby. And I ended up being paralyzed until the next day. I still couldn't wake up. I went straight home. I gave birth the day before the November 13th attacks, so I was just waking up from the anesthesia. I see the father of my children come in and say to me, "Look, it's crazy what happened in France. Look at all this." So I look. Then I see an article I see a bar, a kind of brasserie all destroyed, so I read the article and I'm scared, I'm paralyzed. I thought we're all going to be victims of these madmen. I realized this will get so big, we'll all go through it, we're all going to die. Me here, them there, it's over, they'll take over the world. What can we do? It's awful that I'm here. My country will think I'm like them just because I'm here. So I thought they wouldn't know who did what and would just say, "That's it, I'm here." I also felt guilty about what happened and thought they'd never let me come back home. It was legitimate since I didn't know, and we were still miserable.
You were afraid that you would end up being associated with them?
Oh yes. Then I told myself it was certain. I told myself it was certain that they wouldn't believe it and all that, and that's it.
What's next? For me, there's a moment when there are Kurdish camps. Does that come later? What happens in the meantime? Do you have your second child in the meantime?
Yes, so for me, this second child, I did everything I could to get it out of me, because over there you can't have an abortion, there's no abortion, it's not allowed. And actually we were in the middle of a war, which means there were bombings non-stop. So when I was pregnant and all that, I was bombed, and actually I was under the rubble. My pregnant granddaughter, the father of my children holding my daughter, and I were all unharmed, even though I found myself under the stones. We all made it out safely. There was really almost nothing left. We were outside, so we managed to get out of there. The war kept going on, and it got even worse. So I gave birth again in horrible conditions, alone in a kitchen. I gave birth normally, all by myself. Yes, I gave birth all alone, normally, in a kitchen. My contractions started in the morning, and I gave birth that evening. She was stuck and wasn't breathing when born. I don't know how long she went without breathing. Women came to help her breathe. I thought my daughter was dead, but soon she started breathing and crying. I just held her in my arms like that. I couldn't really process it. I thought, how am I going to handle all of this? That's all. Because there was no more food, no more to eat, no more to drink. There was almost nothing left. It kept getting worse and worse. Meanwhile, my little brother, who was about 8 or 9 years old at the time, I think, was playing near the Euphrates River. And then there was a coalition bombing that hit a car right next to him. And actually he was so close that he was hit by a large piece of shrapnel, a big piece from the missile, and it tore off his leg. My father was still alive at that time. It was before he died. Before 2019, I think it was in 2016. It tore off his leg and then he fell into the water. My father saw this happen because he saw that he was there and he ran to get my brother. Only part of his leg remained attached and his arm was also hit. Now his arm is damaged and mostly unusable. He took him straight to the nearest hospital. But those strikes had hit several people. There were a lot of injured. It was a massacre. He runs with his son. Imagine the horror of carrying your son with his leg torn off. They drop him off and give first aid to prevent him from bleeding to death. And then they transfer him to another city where I was already with my children because I didn't want to stay there. I was fleeing as fast as I could and had already arrived when I heard my brother was hit by a missile and lost his legs. I rushed to the hospital to see him. He was just a little kid, and actually, I see him all pale like that, with no color left. And that image, it's going to stay with me for life. And then I remember he lifts the sheet and he says to me, "Look." So I tell him, I don't know what to say to him. I don't know. I break down in front of him. I don't know what to say. I just hold his hand and say, "It'll be okay." Then he panics. He's not well, and I see his leg is badly cut. It was honestly terrible. And afterwards, as a result, he didn't get any care because there was no care available. We just kept moving back, moving back, moving back, moving back. At one point, we found ourselves on a really tiny road, honestly, a tiny little road, and we were all there together. Really, all the last living people were there.
Why are you retreating? Because of the strikes?
The bombings, yes, the strikes, the bombings. And then there were also the Kurds on the ground, so they were really shooting, hitting with everything they could. We couldn't hide anymore and had to follow because we had no other option.
Is your little brother surviving besides that?
My little brother is surviving, and right after that we experienced the war very intensely, so the siege lasted for 2 months. We had nothing left to eat. We ate chicken feed, kind of like hay, and we mixed it with water to make a sort of paste to eat. But it didn't nourish us, and everyone got extremely thin.
Did anything shock you then? You mentioned seeing 2 people getting repair. Is that accurate?
No, it wasn't during that war, it was before that, it was more in Raqqa.
So you saw that before?
Yes, that was more in Raqqa.
What happened?
What happened was that, actually I was walking with my daughter like that on a Friday. And then I see a crowd like that, a movement of people like that, surrounding the area where I am. Because actually in war, they never warn you that they're going to do this, because when you're at war, they're going to get bombed. Suddenly, they come and surround us. Then I see a van arrive with masked people inside. I saw them bring 2 men and quickly cut off their hands. I think they spoke, but I couldn't hear. Then they were taken away and everyone left. Women were also caught in the crowd, screaming and fainting, asking what was happening. That was the execution I witnessed. Now back to the war. So at that moment there are big fires everywhere. I see people crawling, coming out of the fire, dead children on the ground, wounded parents crying over the bodies of their children. We lived in trenches because we were avoiding bullets, so we slept in trenches with corpses. There were corpses in the trenches, but actually we jumped into the first trenches because there was war everywhere. At that moment, I only stood for a few minutes to bring some things inside. Then a sniper's bullet hit my neck and I fell. I fell to the ground, suddenly unable to hear anything. I only felt that I had peed myself and heard my blood flowing. I thought I was dead. Suddenly, the man who gave me water earlier ran toward me, grabbed me, put his hand on my neck, took something out and carried me as he ran. My head was lolling around, and that's when I started to regain consciousness. And then I saw all the dead, thousands of dead like that, tons of people burned and injured. And then they stitched me up with a needle from the same woman who was torn up everywhere, and they cut that woman's needle. And they came directly to stitch my throat without anesthesia. It got infected, I had pus like that all over my neck afterwards, and so on. We survived on water. There was water that had stagnated from the rain, and so on. Or there were dog corpses, because the animals were dying too. We drank that water, but we really had no choice. We were going to die, we didn't eat for several days, and so on. Until the day
You lose weight too.
I had become invisible. You could still see everyone, the children dying naked, lying on the ground, their bodies. It became normal there. We had to act fast to survive. My brother, who had 1 leg and used a crutch, needed to be carried everywhere. I had my baby, my 2 children, and so in the end we managed to get out. So we arrive at the camps. In the meantime, we see the Americans who receive us, question us, take our fingerprints and send us to the camps, and then we arrive at the camps. The first camp, called the Jungle, had women who seemed completely out of their minds, like beasts with nothing human left. They killed and attacked each other with hammers and iron rods over religious differences, simply because they didn't share the same beliefs. That's how it was. Then they also fought because the lighter wasn't the same color. You gave me one, oh no, that's mine, it's not yours. Boom. They hit each other, and as soon as they knew a woman was talking to a man, they would decapitate her and throw her into the toilet pit. It was madness. Bodies were found in the toilet pits. The Kurds were also overwhelmed and they attacked everyone too. They didn't know who was who, so they attacked everyone as well. It was literally a jungle.
How did you finally manage to get repatriated, and how?
I was moved to another camp after living in that jungle camp for a year and a half. I was moved to another camp and brought to a camp called Rojava, which was set up and monitored by the Americans, but run by the Kurds.
Okay.
Over there, everything was tidy and spotless. At first, we didn't have to wear veils. Some women removed theirs, but other women attacked them. They were beaten for removing their veils, so it was safer to keep them on. And after that, there was a list of people who signed up to go to France. One day, France arrived. There was a convoy of the first women, so that's when we really started to believe in it, really. We believed in it strongly. The lawyers were working in France, and my lawyer, Maître Dosé, handled everything. She tried to get me and many other women out. I was in the third convoy after 2 repatriations. So the first convoy was in July, the second in October, and the last one in January. So I came back in January 2023. I was taken care of right away.
Were you able to come back with your daughters too?
I came back with my children, of course, yes. I came back with my children. I came back with my children who were immediately taken into care by Child Protective Services. I was questioned for 3 days by the Directorate General of Internal Security, and I was released by the Anti-Terrorism Court, so by a judge I was released. An organization took me in, helped me reintegrate, and still supports me today. And I see my children, I have them up to 4 times a week with a UT. They have wonderful educators, I do too. I've seen psychologists and everything is going well.
Sana, thank you so much. You also wrote a book recently, a comic book rather to be precise, which traces your whole journey. Is that right? So it's a bit of everything you've told us, even more in detail. You also go back to other moments that you haven't necessarily talked about in the video, I imagine, but...
Yes, of course. Obviously, there's so much to say.
Is the comic book around 200 pages?
Yes.
What's it about? Is it your journey there or also before?
Yes, I made sure to talk about what happened before, because the hell already started before. And it's really important not to trivialize child abuse. And I think we don't talk enough about children who experience abuse in their own homes. I was literally living in hell right in front of my teachers, my family doctor, whom I confronted, as I mentioned at the end of the book. They saw nothing and chose to turn a blind eye. It's outrageous. They could have saved 5 lives.
Sana, thank you very much. That's already the end of this episode. Let me remind you that if you also want to get Sana's book, don't hesitate. The link is in the first line of the description. And for the others, if you want to watch another episode, there are 2 episodes showing up on the screen now. You can click. Have a very good evening. This was Noah. Bye.